So this is the story of how I lost everything. My mental health, my body, my relationships, every shred of self-worth I had left, including the really hard, painful lessons I learned that I'm sharing with you now, so you don't have to pay the price like I did. They say independence makes you strong, and relying on others makes you weak. That true success comes from pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps, by being self-made. And after getting burned for relying on others, I believed them. But what I wish they hadn't left out was how independence can also leave you drowning in silence, too proud to ask for help, even when you're sinking. How it can leave you feeling stuck, blaming yourself because, well, everyone else seems to be handling life fine, so why can't you? It's funny to convince yourself that you're strong and independent when all you're holding up is a collapsing life. Hey, I'm Ken, and for years now I've helped people navigate their challenges and create the change they want to see in their lives through coaching and guiding them. And ever since I was a kid, I've loved helping people. I grew up in a household that was very strict, very demanding, and very controlling. I didn't have a lot of freedom to make my own choices and develop my own personality and needs and wants. And so I grew up in an environment that felt often suffocating. And because of that, I always craved independence, even though I was simultaneously a bit scared of it. And as I grew up into my teenage years, I often felt that relying on others was risky and uncertain because people you love and rely on can burn you, can let you down, and you can come to realize that you might not be able to trust them all the time. And sometimes growing up in my chaotic and unstable home environment, as well as school being a little bit tough, I felt that asking for help made me feel like a burden as well. And so I had all these negative associations with asking for help. And on top of the way that society teaches us to be independent, I felt that independence was the key to being successful and being respected. And so I concluded that independence was everything that I wanted out of my adult life. I've always been very driven and performance-oriented, on top of being passionate about helping others. I always had many things I was interested in at one time, and so I became fascinated, especially after college, with how top performers and competitors and very driven people could keep up and do so many things without looking like they were burning out. And so naturally, I became fascinated with psychology, both from a high performance perspective, as well as a mental health and mental well-being angle. And so for years, I read tons of books, listened to podcasts, interviews, and just consumed as much as I could in order to first understand myself and my mind, and then by extension, other people. And 7 years ago, after doing so much studying and falling in love with psychology, I became a coach. I started helping people build habits and mindsets and confidence for overcoming challenges and accomplishing the things that they want most. And after several years of one-on-one coaching, during the pandemic, I also became a head coach and mental performance coach in esports or competitive gaming, working with leading teams and their players while working a full-time job and doing part-time coaching. I would say esports can best be described as an insanely fast-paced, highly competitive, feast or famine environment where everyone is sacrificing most of their waking hours to become the best and learn to work and compete in a team environment, solve challenges, grow their skills, increase their performance, become better leaders and communicators in this chase to become the best. And during the time that I worked in competitive Valorant, there was almost never an off season. You were always competing and always practicing. And it's very intense, but also very rewarding if you can win or if you're in a very motivated environment, because it's inspiring to be around all of that commitment and all that energy. And so I got a chance to apply psychology and leadership and communication skills to the teams that I worked with. And this is the stuff I was super passionate about. So I felt like at the time I had this really great environment to apply everything that was interesting to me. But one caveat of esports is that you are always working. Any moment that you're not at your job or in some sort of other call, you are practicing and preparing and studying and growing and talking to players, because there is no rest time like physical sport. In physical sports, You work out, you practice for several hours, but then you know the body needs rest. Whereas in esports, unfortunately, you end up having to practice a long amount of time. So probably for over a year, I would wake up at 6, work until the late afternoon, have a coaching client, and then immediately jump into coaching esports all the way until 12 a.m. straight. This was my typical day, and on weekends, we continued to practice as well. And so there really is virtually no days off. I wanted to succeed so hard at all of the things I was doing. My coaching practice, my job, and then coaching esports in the evenings, that I was barely eating, sleeping, and exercising. And I've always been super multi-passionate, but I'd never been stretched so super consistently thin for long periods of time. And because all of this started during the pandemic, I got used to just staying inside, working from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep and just crash. And I didn't talk to other people and ask for help, didn't really update my friends on how stressful everything was, and didn't tell anyone how difficult all of this had become. I was overloaded and I was trying to handle literally everything by myself. Even the idea of stopping to ask for help and talk to other people felt like it would put me more behind at my goals. And on the outside, it looks like I was doing a ton, which I was, but I was also struggling to hold on to everything and do everything as well as I'd hoped. And it takes a lot to keep afloat in that type of situation. And it got to a point where my coaching business was not getting a lot of attention, and even part-time, I didn't have somebody helping me manage the logistics. I would find out at tax season almost a year later that one of my clients might not have paid me at all during the year, which somebody could have picked up if I had the bandwidth to actually check on what was happening outside of just showing up for sessions and preparing for sessions. And esports was so extremely stressful because any moment that I was not at my job or coaching one-on-one, I was watching, studying Valorant, studying the game, reading up on psychology, sitting in practice every single day, and every moment was accounted for. And I did not even eat without working. Sometimes I didn't eat, period. And that's because I left no gaps between one thing to the next. It was straight from job to coaching session to coaching for the rest of the evening. And so even though I was coaching others and helping them in every way possible with psychology, with making sure that they were taking care of themselves, like this massive irony is that I wasn't seeking out the support and the guidance and the coaching I needed for myself. What I was doing for others, I wasn't doing for myself. And because I desperately wanted everything to work out, I just didn't let go. And this version of independence, where I tried to do everything myself, had validated me for almost 8 years by this point, right? I had built up a career, I'd built up my own side business, I'd done so much to advance myself that it felt like I wanted to succeed on my own at any cost. I was so married to this idea that I was going to figure it out, and the only way that I could figure it out, and the only answer I had for myself, was to just work harder, to grind harder. But the reality is the lack of help I had in all of the things that I wanted to accomplish led me to becoming extremely depressed, extremely burned out. I didn't have a coach or therapist or personal trainer, didn't have anybody really to consistently help me get through these really challenging demands. I hadn't delegated anything at all. I had no energy, no motivation, and was burned out and just really tired and exhausted for months. And I was also embarrassed because I didn't want to burden anyone else with it, right? These were choices and passions and interests that I signed up for on my own. And for years, this worked until it didn't. And when it didn't, that's when everything started crumbling down. I mean, I'm honestly surprised at how long I was able to keep up with all of these demands and still perform, but it was just unsustainable for the long term without some other sort of growth. And because of all of this, stretched over a long period of time, I ended up hitting my rock bottom by reaching a point where I had to take a massive break from coaching because I just had no energy left in me. I was beyond burned out. My long-term girlfriend at the time broke up with me. I felt like I had not accomplished anything that I had wanted, and that all of this energy and this sacrifice ended up being wasted because in the end, I ended up not being well enough to handle any of it. And so I ended up having a year of time where I was completely depressed, burned out. I had health issues that required surgery. I was still not eating well and didn't feel motivated to do much. And I ended up having to drop most of my esports coaching. And the only things I would wake up for were to just do my job and to handle a couple of coaching clients. It was by far one of the worst times of my life. The thoughts that ran through my head at the time were, I'm worthless and I'm a failure for not being able to make this happen. And every aspect of my life and the things I was passionate about had basically gone to hell. I hated what my life had become, what I had become. All I had ever wanted to do was to help others become their best, to empower them, to embolden them, to make them feel confident about themselves. And here I am, like completely at my worst, almost no life in me. And in a lot of ways, because I did not have the support and I did not ask for help myself. And so it took months to a year to bottom out. And that period after all of this stress finally broke was one of the worst years of my life. And in this awful period where I had no energy, no self-esteem, and felt like I had completely failed myself, I realized that I'd taken this idea of independence from when I was younger and glorified it. I'd taken this idea of independence so far that it became hyper-independence. I had created an internal world where I wanted to succeed all on my own, doing so many things that all can't be done excellently alone. And I'd also left my friends in the dark about how bad things had become because I'd just keep holding on and just get back to that idea of work harder, learn faster, and catch up, and you can do it. And I'd let something that can be healthy, this sense of independence, get to a point where it had begun poisoning me. Now, discussions about workload and burnout aside, the end result is I lost my relationships, my romantic and friendships, because I hadn't tended to them, and my body and mind were at the worst point in my life, and all of the goals and energy I had put into them didn't pan out. And so this became one of the most challenging periods of my life, where I had so many lessons to learn and so many internal beliefs and approaches to life undermined and challenged. I think the question becomes, what are some of the important lessons I learned that I can share with you so that you don't have to go through something similar? And so the first crucial lesson I learned is that independence doesn't mean not asking for help. It does mean that you have to be the driver of your own success, that you have to be motivated and disciplined to push on your own. But I learned that even when you succeed all by yourself, you could have done it even faster, better, with the right people around you, supporting you. And I do have to emphasize this idea of having the right people around you, those that are supportive, care about you genuinely, are encouraging you, giving you honest feedback, and allowing you to chase your passions without tearing you down out of jealousy. This could mean collaborators, to friends, to accountability buddies, to coaches, mentors, employees, having workout buddies who are joining you and supporting you along the way. And for me, the lesson has been, don't be so incredibly independent on others that you can't function yourself, but don't be so hyper independent that you're afraid to be vulnerable and to ask for help. You need to be practicing both, the willingness to do your own work, but also to continuously ask for help and communicate what you're doing and what your experience is like. Had I communicated what was going on with others and the stressors that I was under, I might have not gone to a point of severe burnout and depression, and I may have been able to get help and support and be able to continue staying on top of things that I needed to do, as demanding as they were. So second, success requires you to be resourceful. When your current approach and how you use what's available to you is not working, you have to change. Successful people tap into everything that's available to them, including support from other people. That means speaking to people, groups, communities, even referencing books, courses, and other leaders and mentors for knowledge, perspectives, and answers that help you refine how you're approaching your life. It's so important to build the right resources and people and knowledge base around you as you go towards the things that you want, so that you don't find yourself scrambling when shit hits the fan. The most successful people always have people around them, supporting them. They have teams, they have coaches and assistants and mentors and experts, and friends and family, hopefully, and teachers and investors. And outside of extreme outliers, and usually even in those outliers, people are receiving help along the way. They might just not be telling you that that's what's happening. They might craft a very different narrative. And very obviously, very successful people who are leaders also don't win without their teams. So anybody who has a company and anybody who has built something big where there are people around them claiming that they're self-made, frankly, just doesn't speak too much to reality, at least in my view. Third, a lot of the time, it's worth investing in a professional or an expert to help you in the things that you want to do, because they've already done the work of learning, of training, and communicating what you need to know. So you don't have to scramble for hours and hours and hours going down different paths to nowhere and wasting your time and energy. I mean, in my case, just some of the things that I realized I needed to do was to find a trainer or find an accountability buddy to go to the gym with, so that I could stay consistent on my fitness goals, even if I could always say, hey, well, I could just skip it because of work. But if I had that accountability system, I wouldn't just push it to the side. Additionally, especially as somebody who studied psychology and coached, I think therapy and having somebody who is a professional mentor is extremely useful. And getting professional expertise on something does not always necessarily mean you have to meet with them one-on-one. There are courses, there are groups, there are communities that are passionate about one thing and get together online or sometimes in person as well, where you can all learn from each other and inspire each other. Eventually, even if you have to invest something, sometimes it ends up saving you time and money and opportunities that are lost from your future mistakes, inaction that are caused by your lack of perspective. I mean, I have really embraced that since that period in my life. And fourth, if you're afraid to ask somebody for help, whether it's because you feel like you might be a burden or for some other reason, if this person hasn't given you any reason to doubt asking them for help, then just ask anyways and let them communicate how they feel about it. I think sometimes we get super into our head about how we're being perceived with others, and obviously this can be something built up from experiences you've had asking for help before, but at the end of the day, it's important to still reach out. And one of the problems I see with not asking for help and learning from others is that, let's say you live 80 to 100 years. If you don't have the right support around you and you don't have their perspectives and supporting attitudes and mindsets and wisdom, you can end up going in life at a more indirect or a slower path or down the wrong road more times than not. And at least in my view, this can lead to living less of what you were meant to experience in this life. And so my humble opinion from experience is check your ego and your pride at the door and reach out. And if somebody says no, don't take it personally. Lesson number 5, vulnerability is strength. I've often found myself in rooms or gatherings or spending time with people who sometimes are afraid to share how they're actually doing underneath. And so they put up a face, they talk about the surface level things. And as important as those types of conversations sometimes are, just to establish connection and to appreciate the things that are going well, I think it's important to also be able to show how you're actually feeling and how you're actually doing. and find an eloquent way to communicate what your true experience is. Because if you don't have that outlet, and if you don't have that sense that you can be truly yourself with anybody, conversations and connections can become draining and not as meaningful. I feel like in a lot of social situations, people are actually yearning for deeper conversation and being able to be vulnerable and be themselves and share how they're really thinking and feeling. And I think in yearning for that connection, they still wait for other people to initiate and open that door in that conversation. And so I think vulnerability is to take a risk being honest with how you're doing, how you're feeling with others, so that they can also reciprocate. And I think that's a really, really core piece of building any relationship, not just in relationships where you're asking for help or communicating how you're doing. And I have to say, some of the most meaningful connections I have ever made in my life, especially since that period in my life, and including my friendships who are now my best friends, all of those connections were built on giving each other the space to be honest about how we're doing with each other. And those have been some of the most enriching and empowering and nourishing relationships I've ever had in my life. And actually, research in psychology strongly supports the idea that close relationships are one of the strongest protective factors for your health and for your mental well-being that you can have. And I don't know if I could have recovered as well as I did from my rock bottom if I didn't build and nourish the close relationships that I have today. And a sixth lesson or reminder that I found to be extremely important is that you always have to put effort into your friendships like they are any other relationship, that you always have to nourish them, make them meaningful, and actually put in effort, regardless of whether or not you have a long-term partner or not. I think it's very easy in this day and age that we are able to survive on our own, and sometimes our partners or our romantic relationships are the people that we spend most of our time and attention on. And I think that's a very natural and normal thing, but friendships are so incredibly important. And you will never really know when they need you and you need them. And so it's always important to stay in touch. I feel like being isolated and feeling alone and not engaged or supported within any sort of community is one of the major challenges facing people today. And so there's a chance that I might talk about building relationships and community on this channel in the future. And lesson number 7, be absolutely free and encouraged to set ambitious and daring and challenging goals. There's nothing wrong with being bold, but make sure you know which are the things that you want to prioritize and which lanes you want to get more help with. You have to be able to protect your time and energy to sustain progress over time, which is one of the mistakes I made. And so oftentimes that means knowing what you can do better with the right support and which of your lanes are non-negotiable. And crucially, strategize how you're going to adjust and who you're going to reach out to and what you're going to lean on when things get hard and you need to make adaptations. That's actually an important key aspect of resilience. And the 8th lesson I want to leave with you, an extremely important lesson, is that you always have to reflect on what life is teaching you. And I don't mean just once. If life is teaching you a lesson, learn it fast, but also learn more lessons. Go back to the experience to re-examine more and more and more, and check those experiences and your conclusions by those who you trust and have other perspectives. Don't stay at rock bottom for long and always go deeper. As a coach, I've gotten many people interested in working with me for a variety of different reasons. A lot of times they're looking forward and trying to figure out why they're still stuck because they want to get to somewhere. But I find it so important to look at everything you have experienced already, because I find that there's always more lessons to extract from those experiences. And the more that you learn from your experiences compared to somebody else who learns less from those similar experiences, the more you're able to adapt and grow and become more experienced. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if life is a cow, milk it for every possible takeaway. Wow, that analogy was completely unnecessary. The 9th lesson is simple. People who are resourceful and driven and continue to ask for help and continue communicating with others get back up faster and rebound quicker, period. And lesson number 10, which I hope is a reminder, is always give back to other people. Successful people don't do life alone. They always have people supporting them. And my philosophy is always that truly successful people are those that help others as well. They want to leave others better off because they came into their lives. And I'll always stand by that belief. And despite my serious mistake of not reaching out to my friends and staying connected with people when I needed help the most, I've always been willing and wanting to support other people. And so I've always tried to be there for those who need me. And so even at my rock bottom, when I had to catch up even my best friends on all the things that were going on, they also wanted to be there for me. And that really, really means a lot. And relationships are a two-way street. I think sometimes we are given advice earlier in life, but we don't fully embrace and understand and experience the depth and the meaning behind that advice until something big happens. And so it's easy to take that information for granted. And even though it's been a couple years since that point in my life, if you're interested in how I turned it around, the short version is that I started asking for help, started being more vulnerable with all of my friends and the people that I wanted to meet and care about. I started going to therapy to unpack all the things that had gone on in my life. I mean, I got a trainer, I started working more in teams, I started caring more about making sure that I was delegating and getting feedback from other people and having coaches around me. I dove super deep into making sure that if I was trying to learn something, that I had the right people around me, and it's been a massive game changer. I also did a bunch of stuff that I never thought I'd do, like trying stand-up and applying to my dream program and getting a master's in applied positive psychology. It's been a hell of a ride, and I'll say that rock bottoms are worth surviving if you're willing to learn and if you're willing to open your mind. And so if you're interested in learning more about how psychology and coaching can transform your life, your mind, and yourself, subscribe to my channel and join my Discord community where you can ask anything and we can all support each other. See you on the next one.